Hello. Today we're going to be covering how to export TSM sales data into an Excel file. That way that we can better manipulate the information, understand what's been going on through the set time period that we want, so that we can better inform what we're going to be doing in the future. So first, what we need to be doing is getting that data. So you open the TSM desktop application, make sure that it's at the right page, which is the accounting export. You're probably going to pull it up. It's going to look on realm data. Go to accounting export, make sure it's the right account, make sure it's the right realm. Some people use secondary accounts for their auctioning. Then you have your sales, purchases, income, expenses, expired auctions, and canceled auctions as options to export. You can export multiple of them, but for the purpose of this video, we're just going to be doing one. Whenever you do export multiple, you'll get multiple confirmations that it's completed, and they'll be in different files. So make sure everything's correct and hit export to CSV. And then you just wait. This doesn't take a long time. If you select all of them, it takes a little bit longer, but ultimately it goes pretty quick. Once you get this, it's showing you that it's done. You just close this out. You open up the accounting cells for that server, and once you open that up, it'll give you this information. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because OBS really can't capture this information properly. I don't like the way that the lines look, basically. So you have item string information, you have item name information, stack size, quantity, price, the player that purchased or merchant that purchased. You have the player that sold it, the time. This is the important thing that we're going to be looking at today. And then the source information. So whether it be a vendor, trade, auction. So the first thing that I do is I get rid of irrelevant information. I don't need to know who sold or bought anything, and I don't need to know the item string. I only really need to know the profession and or the item that's sold. So then what we want to do is we want to add a timestamp. This is done through a single string that I'm going to be putting in the actual description below, as well as possibly on the screen if I can figure it out. I'm sure I can. And then what we're going to be doing is converting that information into an actual date format that's readable to a human. The way that we do this is we select the cell. So it's E2 is the cell that I have, and then you divide it by a large number, and then you add a large number. These have significant meaning. The reason that I'm giving it to you in a one single format is because it reduces the need to have three cells. This is three equations put into one, basically. And when I condense it like this, it just makes it less confusing for you. So just make sure you copy it exactly. The two important things within this specific equation are the cell of the Unix format, which is E2 in this case, and then your time zone for the actual person that you are. So I live in central US, therefore I have a -6 time zone. You divide that by the number of hours in a day, and bam, that is the equation that we're going to be using to convert this information. After hitting enter, now we have another 5-digit number that doesn't make any sense to a human. All you do is simply hit format cells and hit date. Bam, now we have a date. You can also, this does keep track of the date and time, so you can actually know when you sold it during the day. You can also only pick time if you choose to pick time for whatever reason. Say you want to make two cells, one with the date, one with the time. That's good for pivot tables, because if you choose date and time separately and try to use it as a column or a row, it's going to give you an error and say there's too many options. It has a limit of 255. So, and then you can pick a time and it'll just pull the time out. But for the purpose of this, we're going to be looking at the date, because that's how I like to look at it. So then all we do is hit copy, and we'll go to the bottom and we'll hit paste. Now we have date. So now what we want to do is we want to grab the information that we want only. We don't want to grab everything. This is 13,000 plus lines of code, and filtering it is actually quite difficult for Excel to handle, at least on my computer for some reason. So what we want to do is we just want to make sure it's oldest to newest. Some of these cells can actually be a little off. Like you'll have, see, this is what I'm talking about with the filtering. Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to filter it. So what we'll do in that case is we'll just grab a couple days before, just so we make sure we don't miss anything. What I was trying to say was that the cells will sometimes be out of order for the date. Doing it this way just ensures that we don't miss anything. So we'll just go to the 31st. I'm trying to grab the 2nd to the 9th, or the 2nd to the 8th. I don't know why I'm so specific here. And then we'll hit copy. Then what I do is I paste that information into a new document so that we can leave the original document alone and we'll close it out. I don't like messing with the actual document more than I have to. So we'll hit don't save, and now we have the data that we want to pay attention to. So now what we're going to be doing is adding some other things. Things I like to add are the total sale for something, the total number of auctions, and the profession that these products belong to. Also, now that it is smaller, we can solely focus on actually filtering this information. So doing that really fast, it does not like to filter 13,000 lines of code. So this is every day that we want to look at. We want to look at, oh, I missed one. We want to look at these 7 days, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's going to grab all the data that we want for all the cells that happen during that full 7-day period. That covers 12 a.m. in the morning to 12 a.m. the night before it cuts off. So let's see. Cells that I like to add are the total number of auctions. And the way that we do this is obviously just a simple division problem. It is the quantity by the stack size. And the reason we do it this way is because I personally like to look at the number of auctions that I have for a specific stack size, not the quantity sold of that auction. It makes it easier to read and understand whenever you're putting this into, say, a pivot table. In this case, I sold 3 auctions of a stack of 10. The other thing that we want to do is we want to convert the price. This is usually the second thing I do. The way that I convert the price, there are many ways to do this, is I do a special paste basically. If you do it another way, feel free to do it that way, but you divide this number by 10,000. When you divide it by 10,000, you take this large number and you put it into a more readable format. Sorry, this auction confused me. I'm not sure what it is. Occasionally you'll get these question marks. They aren't 100% readable. I have to find out what I sold for that amount of gold. All right, so you copy and then you hit the cell that you want to copy paste this into, for the ease of not making the computer go forever. We'll just do that. We'll select the cells and we'll hit special paste. We'll hit divide. I have a double click, so it goes really fast. What I was trying to do there was I'll hit okay, it did it again. There we go. We just want to hit divide the one time. That'll take that 10,000, divide it into these specific cells so we have a better understanding of what we sold. This auction that threw me for a loop is a question mark. It's 15,000 gold. The only thing that I can think of that would have sold for that amount is maybe like a monolite fish finder or something like that. I'll have to look it up. Usually what I label these as is miscellaneous, and I don't even worry about it. But the majority of things that you sell on an auction are going to have a name. If you sell it to a vendor or trade to a person, the likelihood of having a question mark as the item name is drastically higher. That's why I only pay attention to my sales data on auctioning, because it means that I have good knowledge of what I sold. The other thing that we want to do is add a total sale, and I usually, this is per unit price. I changed that name too. So your total sale is the unit price times the number of auctions times the stack size. If I can do normal math, there we go. And to get the total sale, we take the per unit price times the number of auctions times the stack size, and that spits out an actual total sale amount. I use this so I can get a total sale sum from a specific type of item, specific type of profession, and so on and so forth. So then you just go through and paste that in. I can get it to work. All right, so that gives us some important information there. And then the last thing that I like to add is a profession. I add a profession so that I can easily find what I'm selling, from what categories, which professions are performing better than others for me, so on and so forth. So the way I do this is I sort it by name. So this is the fastest way I've been able to find this. I'm going to speed the video up through this so that you don't have to sit there and watch me do this very slowly. But this is the most effective way, is you set it up by item name and then you just go through and type the profession. So I'm going to speed the video up now and I'll come back to you whenever we're done. All right, so now that we've done that, I can easily take this information, put it into a meaningful format, like say a pivot table, and then look at what we've got going on. So I'll go ahead and show you how to do that. Just create a new sheet, and you can use whatever format that you want. If you like charts, use charts. You'll have to adjust the way this data is laid out to use, like say, a graph chart. I prefer pivot tables because I can add and move things and look at it in a text file format versus looking at it in a graphical format that can be informative for some people, even myself, but this is just the preferred method that I have because I work with pivot tables on a regular basis at work. So you add a pivot table, this little doodad will pop up. You select a range. So I'm going to select this area as a range, which is the whole area, and hit enter. hit go, and then I can pull profession down, I can pull date over. Whenever you pull the date over, it'll ask you for months and dates. You can just pull out that and you can look at the actual timetable there. January 31st is in this for some reason. It doesn't need to be. It pulled more information than it should have. So what we'll do is, oh, it pulled all month information because I removed the month. So I'll specifically select those dates. So the 2nd through the 8th, this covers the full 24-hour period for those specific dates. And then what I do usually is I will take the total sale by the profession, and then add the item under the rows. And you can adjust this to fit your needs. This is just one of the ways that I do it, but I'm sure there's a faster way to do this. I'm just lazy at the moment, trying to think of what I could be doing. So all this blank data is data that's not covered because they don't have a profession listed. It's not accounted for in any way for sales data because it doesn't have anything associated with it. So it doesn't factor into the end values down here, or this total end value. An example of what you could look at for this type of stuff is, for example, aromatic fish oil. I had 16,000 sales. Bountiful fish feast, I had for this 7-day period 200,000 in sales. This doesn't count for profit margin or anything, but what I do have in all of my strings is a minimum of 20% profit, whether that be above vendor buy or whether that be on crafting. I have it set that way so that I generally have a good idea of what I'm making on all these. If I'm selling it, I'm never selling it below that low floor, and to ensure that I'm getting a profit. That's also divided to like by 0.95 to account for the auction house count. So these are pure 20% profit sales on either the crafting cost or on the vendor buy price. What I was trying to show you was why I choose number of auctions and the quantity sold. So you can go by stack size and throw stack size under this, and now we have more information about what stack sizes I sold aromatic fish oil in, Bountiful Feast, Honey Pot Pies. For example, I pretty much never sell stacks of 10 in Bountiful Feast. I still post them, but because no one else posts them in stacks of 10, the price that I post them at is ridiculous. Because everything I do has a matching stack size. But this kind of gives you an idea of why exporting the data into this format and then using things like a pivot table or a graph can be informative. And then on top of this, you can also add in other stuff like the total number of auctions sold. This really blows up your pivot table. I mean, you can go really in depth with this in a deep dive. But for example, the total sale that I had for aromatic fish oil was 2 stacks of 200 on this day. You can go all the way over if you're like a normal human and freeze the panes. You can actually get information that is more useful. So like freeze the first column and go over and get this information to be more useful. So during the 7-day period, I sold 10 stacks of aromatic fish oil at 200. I sold a lot more stacks at 20, but I made less gold. Sold even more stacks at stacks of 5, and I made even less gold. This is because all my stuff is price matching based on the stack size to get those sales. So hopefully you found this informative. and what you can do with the information. You don't have to go in depth like I do. If you wanted to look at a very basic idea of what's going on, you could just do total number of sales. I can use the total number of auctions to inform your opinion. But for example, blacksmithing, for the week I had 19 auctions sell. It brought in 65,000 gold in sales. I had 645 auctions for cooking. Inscription had 536. I just picked up Inscription a couple weeks ago and kind of started really trying to learn that profession, and it's done really well for me. I make so much gold with Inscription. The downside to that is for time per hour spent or time per minute spent, I'm probably making far more of a killing on cooking. I have more sales with it. It makes less gold, but for the time investment that I have in it, it is far less. So the concept is laid out for you. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, do the normal YouTube thing. Leave a like, comment if you have questions, and I'll see you whenever I actually do a deep dive of this week.